Hi, welcome to our first lesson on how to make the beginner's quilt from pins and needles in Mount Kisco, New York. Today we're going to talk about what you need, and I will show you how to do the cutting. And the next class, I will show you how to start making the blocks. Our quilt has a pattern, and I will put this as a PDF file so you can download it and print it out. It's basically a picture with some numbers on it. We'll talk about that in a minute. So what are you going to need? Some basic sewing supplies. Most important, you're going to need a rotary cutter. If you have one at home, put a new blade in it so it's sure to cut through all of our different fabrics. You'll need a rotary cutter ruler. This one is 8.5 by 12.5. They come in different sizes. I recommend getting a rectangular one, not a square. You could get 6 by 12, 6.5 by 12.5, or the 8.5 by 12.5 work fine. They also come in longer sizes. Again, it's your personal preference. Pins come in handy. A pencil, because we are going to have to mark some lines. Hopefully you won't need a seam ripper, but you never know. And some Scotch tape, because we're going to make ourselves a little cheat sheet for our fabrics. And that's it. And a sewing machine with some thread. And that's about it. So our fabrics that we need are 5/8 of a yard of a background fabric. You decide what you want to use for your background. I'm using an off-white solid, but you could use a small print. You could use a larger print. Whatever you like is fine. And then we need 1/3 of a yard of 4 different fabrics. So we need 5 fabrics in total, 4 prints and 1 background. From each of the prints, you are going to cut a 10-inch strip of fabric. You're also going to cut a 10-inch strip of fabric off your background fabric. And then we're going to turn those 10-inch strips into 10-inch squares. So let's get started with cutting. When you get your fabric, it's always folded, and I take what are called the selvage edges. It's the edge that has the fuzzy edge or the little tiny holes in it. It's where they stop printing the fabric. And I'm folding it so it comes to the fold of the fabric. If your fabric's really wrinkled, you may want to give it a good pressing. But usually when they come right off the bolt, you don't need to press. And I'm taking my fabric and I am lining it up with one of the lines on the bottom. Let me move this up so you can see it a little bit better here. My fold of the fabric is lined up with one of the lines on the mat. And I also have my fabric lined up with one of the lines going vertically. Okay, so I'm going to get a nice straight cut. Now the first thing that I've already done is I've done a clean cut, which means I lined up my ruler just a little bit on the edge of the fabric, and I cut so that I got a nice straight edge. I'll show you that on a different fabric. So I need 10 inches. So what I'm going to do is count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I put my ruler down. And what I like to do is I like to line up one of the lines on the ruler with the fold of the fabric. And then I line up the edge of the ruler with one of the vertical lines at the bottom and at the top. So now I'm ready to cut. When you open your rotary cutter, the rule is as soon as you're done cutting, you have to close it. So you can't cut yourself when it's on your table or it accidentally falls down. It's just better to learn how to do that. I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to put it on my ruler. I'm holding it firmly, but not super firmly. And I'm lining up my rotary cutter with the edge of my ruler, and I'm just going to cut. But watch what I'm going to do. I start to cut and I push pretty firmly. Now I'm getting past where my hand is. So I'm going to stop and slide my hand up and finish cutting. What do? Close my cutter, I put it down. So now I have a strip of fabric that is 10 inches wide. I'm going to do that with all of my fabrics. I'm saving what's left over because I'm going to need another strip later on. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to open my strip, not all the way, but I'm going to leave it folded in half so I have a nice long strip. And the first thing I'm going to do is do that. I'm going to flip it so you can see this a little better. I'm going to do that clean cut I just talked about. This edge is not even, and this is where the selvage is, and I don't want to use that. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line it up. I'm going to move this over so you can see it better. Okay. Same thing, I'm lining up my strip with one of the lines on the mat. I line up my ruler, one line, the bottom of the fabric, and my edge of my ruler on a vertical line of my mat. And I hold it down, open my cutter, same deal, move my hand. What do? Close my cutter. And now I can throw this away. Okay. So now I need 10-inch piece, a 10-inch square. So I line up my fabric again at the bottom of the strip with one of the lines. My edge of my fabric is lined up with one of the vertical lines, and I'm going to count 10 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I put my ruler down, lining up the top of the ruler with the number 7 line, the bottom of the ruler with my line, and I'm good to cut. Open my cutter, cut, crawl my hand up, and cut. Okay. And now I have 10-inch squares. I have 2 of them. So I'm going to come to my pattern, and I need to figure out how many 10-inch squares I'm going to need. And it says right at the top, fabric 1 background, I need 4 10-inch squares. I have 2, so I'm going to do it again. I line up my ruler, or my fabric, and I count my squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Put my ruler down. Open my cutter. Cut. Move my hand up. Finish cutting. Close my rotary cutter. And now I have my 4 background squares. And I'm going to put those in a pile. So what you can do now is take the rest of your fabrics and cut 10-inch squares. Now from each of the pretty fabrics, you need to cut 2 10-inch squares. So you'll cut your 10-inch strip, open it like I did, and cut the 2 cut squares. Next time we meet, I will show you how to put the squares together, and we're going to turn our squares into triangles. Any questions? Don't be hesitant to ask. We're always here to help. See you soon. Happy cutting.